Hey guys, it's Emiliath. I want to have a somewhat serious conversation today about where I'm at with making Overwatch content, what happened to Overwatch, and what the future of my content looks like. If any of you have been in my stream lately, you've probably noticed I haven't been playing Overwatch as much. Truthfully, I'm just not enjoying the game anymore. The last time I played a full stream of Overwatch, I felt like I was forcing myself to play despite having awful games, throwers, and of course, sexists, until I abruptly ended stream without even raiding anyone because I was just so drained. This game has felt awful for the past 2 seasons. I've played through every terrible meta, the content drought, pretty much any awful time era you can remember, but I have never felt this way before. So what happened to the game we all loved? Obviously, there's a string of bad decisions that have led up to the past 2 seasons feeling as bad as they have. I keep seeing people point to one thing and say, this is it, this is the reason Overwatch is bad. But that's just not the case. There are multiple layers that have led up to this. I know the devs want their players to enjoy their game, and I'm sure they're scrambling to figure it out, but identifying and fixing each problem will not happen with a snap of a finger. There are so many compounding factors that need to be addressed. One of the biggest things, in my opinion, is their weird report system. We all remember infamous PJ saying we can't speak the forbidden SH or F words. Since when? This may have been a rule in some random player etiquette that no one's ever read for Blizzard games, but since when was it ever enforced? Overwatch has a profanity filter, which, according to Blizzard, is just for funsies and not for people that don't want to see the awful SH word. Because that makes logical sense. You know what else makes logical sense? Some of the Overwatch characters saying no-no words that the players can get banned for. So when players start getting banned for extremely mild words or shit talk like tank diff, sorry PJ, no one wants to use voice chat anymore. I played 6 hours of Overwatch the other day and I had 2 games where people use voice chat. Whether you use voice chat or not, it does provide some sort of entertainment and connection to your allies in game. One of the most fun parts of online gaming is being able to communicate and coordinate with your team, and this aspect of the game has been virtually killed off. Of course, voice chat can always be toxic, but this brings me to my next point. Players that are using mild no-no words are getting the same punishment as people using slurs. Assuming those people eventually do get banned, anyway. Ashley, who got banned for saying her tank was dog shit, should not be receiving the same 2-week ban as Kyle, who regurgitated every racist, sexist, homophobic 4chan line his little pea brain retained. I've harped on this issue almost every season since Overwatch dropped, but unfortunately, this is a bigger issue that goes past the Overwatch devs into another department that specifically deals with reports. So changing this system will likely take a miracle, even if the Overwatch devs do want something done about it. Next, the PvE debacle. I was a person that was all for canceling the story missions in Overwatch 2 because frankly, no one expected these things from Overwatch before they were announced. Overwatch was a competitive game, and that's what people loved it for. The lore was always secondary and was perfectly fine as short stories, cinematics, or shorts. However, all of this has been handled miserably. Sure, Jeff Kaplan should have never promised these things in the first place and should have let go of a specific vision he had for Overwatch. And truthfully, I think before now, the dev team did their best with everything they were thrown into. They were forced to carry out promises that should have never been made, which resulted in story missions that were watered down versions of what we were promised, because the team simply did not have the manpower or was under too much corporate pressure to provide the full vision. I personally didn't find much replayability in the PvE missions, and unfortunately the hype for the lore died out pretty quickly because it wasn't really followed up on. Despite all of this, it could have still been salvaged and people were fully expecting that to happen at BlizzCon. However, the opposite happened. The team ended up leaving their community confused because they tried to let us down gently. They are not continuing PvE, but instead of saying that, they said they're going to focus on PvP. That's it. No other information about the future of their lore or PvE. Shortly after BlizzCon, Blizzard was acquired by Microsoft and the layoffs began happening. The layoffs finally shed light to the rest of the community what was happening in regards to lore and PvE. Most of the layoffs consisted of artists and writers, including Overwatch's lead narrative designer, Gavin Jurgens Fury, which killed what little hope people still had for old promises. This actually cut a big chunk of the community. Even if Overwatch is a competitive game first, people do love the lore and world building. It's what draws them to the characters. The latest character, Venture, didn't even really get an origin story. Even if you don't typically care about lore, these origin stories help draw people into the game and create love for the characters that they play. Dropping all narrative for the characters makes them feel boring and one-dimensional. Truthfully, all of this PvE stuff is probably the smallest factor, but it is still a factor. The reason why I mentioned it is because it created a distrust and confusion between the community and the devs. Now, the PvE being canceled could have and still could be forgiven. A lot of people were understanding of the changes in dev teams, the promises from the old one, whatever. But not outright telling your community when you've decided to fully scrap something is a huge mistake, and that creates a wedge between you and your community. It could have also been forgiven had the PvP benefited, since that was the excuse used. However, PvP has gotten to the worst state it's ever been due to a number of reasons. One, obviously being balance. I'm a support player, and I've been complaining about support feeling miserable for the past 2 seasons. I've always felt there's something I can do to turn a game around, but it no longer feels that way. I feel like I could do the jobs of 10 people, prep everyone's taxes, solve world hunger, and still lose. Tank is also somehow still not fun despite getting gigabuffs that made everyone else miserable. So who's having fun? And honestly, we do get fairly frequent patches. I wouldn't find it unusual for less people to play during a bad balance patch. I think that's normal for most games. What can't be easily adjusted though is the amount of throwers, leavers, and hackers that currently run the game. No one plays on a main account since the latest rank update that has made it insanely harder to climb. Therefore, 9 out of 10 times the players on your team don't really care about winning. What's odd is that the latest overhaul to ranked did theoretically do most things right. Give players transparency, showed their rank progress, showed rank ranges in game, but ranked somehow feels worse because of it. My theory is that it's because this update made it way too hard for players to climb. This would be different if players felt like they had more impact in games, but with the current issues, they don't feel they have control over their games. Personally, I will never stop advocating for factoring in stats for climbing. Before you draw the pitchforks, I don't want it calculated by scoreboard stats. I think having stats for each rank per character averaged and taken into account could significantly help people feel like they are taking control of their own rank. And using an average of more specified stats per character would help keep people from padding them rather than it just being KD. Either way, until people feel like they have some sort of bearing on their own rank, ranked is going to be miserable and infested with throwers and leavers because people just don't care. Now, I'm super bad at detecting cheats, but evidently there is an insane cheater problem in Overwatch right now. I've definitely been sus of a lot of players in a lot of my games, but because I'm so bad at detecting cheats, I never go back and watch the VOD, and I don't really care to, because honestly, I'm checked out. Anyway, these are the biggest things I've recognized as the cornerstones that are causing Overwatch to crumble. Let me be clear. This is not an invitation to flame the dev team. In fact, I think they've had a very hard road between having an almost entirely new team to losing half of the team after the acquisition, and I think they did an amazing job with trying to pivot Overwatch 2's vision. It's important to remember these things when we feel upset with the state of the game, because the devs are real people and they do put their passion into this game. However, because of all of these things, I'm slowly dipping my toes into variety content. I've already been exploring new games on stream. So far, my favorites have been Resident Evil 7 and 8 and Marvel Rivals. And while Marvel Rivals is still not out, I'm going to continue trying out other competitive games on top of the story games I've been playing. I love Overwatch and I'm going to continue playing when I'm feeling it, but I'd be so grateful if you guys can support me in trying new adventures. All full game playthroughs of any story I play will be uploaded to my second YouTube channel, Emiliath Variety, and as for this YouTube channel, I will post more edited content, but I will not restrict it to only Overwatch anymore. Thank you guys so much for your continued support. I love creating content and I want to keep making it for you. See you next time.